Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were just discussing and defining what depression is. And Dr. Paul Clark and I are navigating how depression and anxiety impacts victims of abuse. As when we left, we were just talking about depression and defining that and helping the audience to understand how that differs from just having a mild downturn, mild mood swing. In terms of anxiety,
I was going to say, where something we left out was that, and it would be generally for a prolonged state.
Exactly.
Right? We're not talking a couple of days where I feel blue. We're talking weeks or months where there's just no relief. Yeah.
Exactly. Where does anxiety fit in?
So sometimes often people who suffer from depression also suffer from anxiety, but the symptoms of anxiety would be quite different. Anxiety would be sort of an overwhelming fear about that just doesn't go away. So imagine, something that you experience in a scary moment or a scary movie, that rush of adrenaline. But the person who experiences a high level of anxiety, that never goes away. They always feel butterflies in their stomach. They start to, and over time, start to have rapid heartbeat and sweating, and in more acute cases, sort of a fear of impending doom, and ultimately, into panic attacks where the body starts to literally go through, as if something terrible was happening, although very often there's nothing really present that they can do. But again, usually caused by stress, right, that just keeps coming and coming without.
And that's the second time tonight you've used that word, and in many ways it is. Anxiety, stress, burnout, depression, all of these kind of mental health factors that stems from or can stem from people being victimized, being harassed, being bullied at school, in the workplace, your neighbors, friends, family members. And you mentioned earlier, because I think it's important for us to talk a little bit about that, in the sense that not that we're trying to lay blame on anyone or point fingers, but it's important for people to be aware, because people are bullied, even in their own home.
Yes.
If we can talk a little bit about that, because from my experience working with people, sometimes it could be an older sibling, could be,
a parent. Could be a parent, an older sibling. Yeah, that's
grandparent. And often that's not recognized.
No, it's not. And I do a whole speech at schools pointing out that, even the best intentioned parents can be very negative. And there's a fine line between trying to push your child to do better and sort of being emotionally abusive. And how many of us, when I talk to an audience, I go, how many people whose parents were fundamentally critical or fundamentally supportive? And really, if we're talking that you never did anything right, and they, always, that you have tapes playing in your head that say, I'm no good, very often when I ask, well, whose voice is that? They go, well, that's my mother's voice, that's my father's voice. And that, unfortunately, that happens all the time. And probably, it's so pervasive, actually, that people don't even admit that they've been bullied, because God forbid, now we come into a fundamental paradox in our mind. The person who loved me and cared for me most was bullying me. Yeah, sometimes. If you... Yeah.
But do you not think that sometimes the person experiencing it don't even recognize that's... Because, like you say, it's a fine line. And for the parents as well, because I don't think that most parents who engage in this are intending to be unkind or insensitive or cruel. I think they have the best of intentions.
Yeah.
and wanting the best for their children, and want to make that clear to the audience.
Yeah.
However, sometimes the best of intentions, the way we follow through on that may not be the best. And for the kids, they may not, because that's hard, for a parent to be saying, you didn't do that well. You never do anything well. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why can't you do this? They're meaning, and they're seeing that maybe as a way to promote and encourage a child to do better. But in most cases, we know from experience that doesn't necessarily work.
No, and one of the, I think, most universal things.
We have a call. Linda, welcome.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, hi.
Hi, Linda.
My name's Linda Baudouin, and I'm an advocate for children's rights, and I'm a survivor of bullying, child abuse, and sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing, Linda. That's not easy, but thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my story's online, and I know all too well about abuse, and I'm open to share my experience and knowledge all about it. And really, bullying is really harassment.
Yes, yes.
And for people, I think it should be called for what it is, like it's abuse. Mm-hmm. Bullying is abuse, right?
Yep. Yes, I agree, yes.
Yeah, and I think that the word abuse is not acknowledged a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be, because how can we find solutions to the problem if we don't talk about what it really is, right?
Excellent point, Linda, and you are right. I am sure Dr. Clark would agree with me that
absolutely.
It is abuse. And for other people who might be listening right now and have similar experience to Linda, we'd like to hear from you and get your input on this, because she's right. It may not be intended. People may not see it that way, but it is. It's verbal abuse, it's physical abuse, and regardless of who is doing it.
Yeah.
She's right.
So, are you still there, Linda?
I'm here.
I just wanted to ask you, because, you seem to be confident now. You're involved in your own recovery, but also in participating in other children's. So, what would you put down as the key to your success in moving from bullied child, I guess, to adult? What helped you?
Oh my, it was a really rough path. I mean, I attempted suicide at different points in my life. Mm-hmm. I dropped out of school because of it, mm-hmm. partially because of it. Mm-hmm.
But something changed.
Yeah.
What's that? Well, I got involved in a lot of, I went to therapy quite a bit. I'm an incest survivor, okay? Mm-hmm. I was raped when I was 7 years old by a family member. Mm-hmm. And so I was left traumatized and with nobody to help me. And back when I was younger, in the 70s, child abuse or sexual abuse wasn't acknowledged at that point. Right. People were just sort of like not listening, ignoring it. So it was really difficult, and I survived through it all. It was God's will, not mine. Mm-hmm. And I've become actively involved in doing whatever I can to prevent crimes on children and to help whichever way. I heard the stories about bullying, and I was very saddened by what the story of Amanda Todd.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's really, really sad that these things happen. But with awareness, it could be very helpful to get to the root of the problem and to acknowledge that it's bullying is actual abuse. Mm-hmm. And it's harassment a lot of the time. I remember being confronted by girls at school in the stairway, mm-hmm. and being like verbally and physically pushed around and stuff like mm-hmm. that. Mm-hmm. So it was difficult, very difficult. And back then there weren't the computers like today. So anyways, I didn't, I can't, I don't know the experience. It would be pretty well like back then with the computers, because that wasn't like that, right?
No, we didn't have cyberbullying back then, but we have it now. But
Yeah.
I before you go, Linda, one thing I want to follow up with where Dr. Clark left off, because you said you went to therapy, and it
Yeah.
must have done you some good because you call yourself a survivor. And I'm glad to hear that, as opposed to seeing yourself as a victim. And now you're helping others. Do you find that that's helpful for you as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have a whole lot of websites. One is healtofeel.com. It's for recovery resources, and there are a lot of survivors on there, and you know, that have been abused and all sorts of different types of situations. So yeah, and I speak to people, and whoever, you know, if it's bullying or sexual abuse, it's all related to the abuse, right?
Yep.
And I'm also involved in trying to get laws passed. So I have a website called survivorspeakout.com, and I do a lot of advocacy work on there, and it's all about the children, protecting them, and preventing crimes on children.
She makes a really interesting point too, and I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah.
So
There's also, I'd like to also share for bullies.
Quickly, Linda, because we're going to be going to a break shortly.
There's a monument called the Child Abuse Monument. And anyone that's been abused can go there and find comfort and healing through the monument. It's in Toronto.
Okay. Very informative. Great. Dr. Clark, you had one quick thing you wanted
I was just going to say that this is one of the things that we see, which is repeated patterns,
Yes.
which is people who are abused early in their lives, in this case sexual abuse, again, starts to be hardwired at this early age, and we start to repeat those patterns of victimization on an unconscious level. The people who are early bullied tend to repeat those patterns, and throughout their life, in their early life, and then so ultimately victimized many times. Yeah.
Many times, unfortunately. We are going to be taking a quick break, and we will return shortly. This was such an interesting